Great. So we are here for a third in our short series of videos, explainers for STEaPP students on different aspects of metascience and its various forms and flavors. And I'm James Wilsdon, Director of RoRI and Professor of Research Policy in STEaPP. And I'm joined by my very good friend and colleague, Ludo Waltman, who is the leader and figurehead of CWTS, Centre for Science and Technology Studies at Leiden University in the Netherlands, and a very central figure in RoRI and in these debates at the intersection of open science and meta science. And it's that we want to discuss briefly for 5 or 10 minutes in this video. So, Ludo, I don't know if you want to say a word of introduction to yourself and sort of your entry point to these debates, and then we'll just kick off with a couple of questions.
Well, just very briefly, James, thank you for having me. So I'm indeed very much involved in all the discussions about open science and meta science. I'm open science ambassador for instance of my own university, Leiden University. So I hope I can give some helpful insights in all the developments that we have ongoing right now.
Excellent. So to get to the nub of it, we've got in these debates these different concepts, different communities, different sort of trajectories of academic work, of policy engagement, of community formation in different ways. Open science, of course, has been with us for a long time. Meta science, in certain respects, has too. In other senses, the term and the kind of community that's growing around it is if not fully new, at least different and evolving. How do you make sense of the relationship between these different communities and concepts, their sort of degree of overlap, interdependency, difference, tension?
Yeah, that's a great question, James. I think there's lots of things that can be said about that, but I could perhaps highlight a few things that I feel are quite crucial and critical. So what you see, of course, in the meta science movement is that a lot of effort is being put in developing a better understanding of what's happening in the research system, how the system is functioning, but also then using that knowledge to actually contribute to making the system stronger, better, and all of that. And this effort that is so critical for the research system, this effort really needs, from my point of view, needs open science in a number of ways. So one thing that I personally care a lot about and that I feel is so important is openness to more and more data about what is actually happening in the research system. There is a lot of data, of course. There's so many things that the researchers do that are being tracked because we do all these things electronically, it's all digital. So it's there. There is data, but there's also a lot of this valuable data that we cannot really access and we cannot really use in our meta research. It's siloed in databases. You can only access it if you pay a lot of money, and even then there are lots of restrictions on what you can do with it. This is a major obstacle actually for successful meta science. So open science is crucial to actually move towards more openness of all the data that will help us to build a strong evidence base for understanding how the research system is operating and making it better. But there's more, of course. This is one important thing. Data is not the only thing we need. And what we also need, if we really want to contribute in helpful ways to strengthening the research system, we need to make sure that we do this also in engagement with all the different actors that we have in the system. The researchers, policymakers involved in kind of running the system, governing the system, research funders, all kinds of actors that play crucial roles in the system. We need to work with them to kind of do meta science that really provides the evidence that these actors need to make better decisions, for instance. And for me, open science is also very much about that type of engagement, engaging with all these different stakeholder groups. So this element of the open science agenda, we really should not forget. Open science is not just openness of research outcomes and openness of data. That's all very important. But it is also about openness to basically the world and the actors around us, the actors that are ultimately supposed to benefit from the work we are doing.
Yeah, no, that's great, very helpful. And I mean, if you look across those landscapes now, can you maybe just give us a couple of concrete examples of initiatives or debates that are, to your mind, particularly promising, exciting, or examples of this sort of mutually reinforcing dance between open and meta in the direction of the science system?
Yes, yeah. Well, of course, there's some things that you and we ourselves are involved in, like the work we are doing in the Research on Research initiative. There's also an initiative that I personally have played a quite significant role in, the Barcelona Declaration on Open Research Information. This is an initiative that is promoting what we call openness of research information. We are promoting openness of all that information about what's happening in the research system for a number of reasons. But one very important reason is to strengthen the whole meta-scientific enterprise and to provide the data that we need for meta research. There's also something else that now comes to my mind. That's these initiatives that we see also more and more to work on basically building a stronger evidence base for things that we do in the research system, also actually for the whole open science development itself. So we see these initiatives, projects, for instance, funded by the European Commission, projects that work on building that evidence base through all kinds of meta-scientific efforts. And that evidence base is then hopefully going to help us to be more successful in actually making research open, in kind of advancing open science. And that in turn then will, of course, also then, again, strengthen meta science.
Great, now that's helpful. And just final question. I mean, if we look forward now, as you know, in our co-authored piece for the UK government and system earlier last year, we borrowed from another great Dutch social scientist, Martin Heyer, this notion of discourse coalitions to think about meta science. And I mean, in a sense, what we're talking about here, open science, meta science, they're an example of a coalition of discourses. If we look ahead to the future of the open science movement and the community around it, and the meta science community, I guess, to what degree do you see convergence, integration, continued sort of different, I guess, sort of where are these two sort of complementary but also slightly different impulses heading? Where are they taking us? How does this sort of play out over the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, that's of course always hard to predict. But I think one thing that we see that's quite clear now is that there is a strong need, an urgent need to kind of develop a more bigger picture, more holistic understanding of actually what is happening in the research system. And both meta science and open science play a crucial role in developing that understanding. And at the same time, they also need that kind of more bigger picture understanding of what is happening in the research system. What I, for instance, experienced myself in doing advocacy for open science, you see more and more that just making the argument that openness is a good thing is not enough in itself. In discussions, for instance, with high-level policymakers that have, of course, lots of competing priorities that they all need to kind of take into account, you need to be able to make an argument where you show also how openness fits into the bigger picture, where we have all the AI developments, where we have the geopolitical developments, where we have big questions around trust in science. And making these connections is going to be more and more important. And meta science is one way to actually understand better how these connections can be made and actually what the bigger picture looks like.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ludo. And I'll just mention at the end, for anyone wanting to dig in more to this, the CWTS blog, the Leiden Metrics blog, it has lots of really interesting articles on these sort of overlaps and alignments of different agendas. So well worth visiting CWTS's website, and also to plug MetaRoR, which is within RoRI. And Ludo is one of the editors-in-chief of this, our own attempt to combine analysis and argument about the intersection of open and meta with practical investment in the building of infrastructures, in this case through the creation of a peer review platform as part of a sort of new next generation model of scholarly communication. So MetaRoR is another thing to take a look at. Ludo, thank you very much. We'll leave it there, and thank you again.
Thanks, James.